Hey there, nerds. Jimmy here with
James.
and another episode of Flashback Friday.
Flashback.
This week we have Cruising Around American Graffiti Style.
Now, I will say, there wasn't a lot of graffiti in the movie, but there were a lot of Americans. So, 5 out of 10 for title, 10 out of 10 for execution. American Graffiti was an incredible movie, and to watch a movie by George Lucas that isn't Star Wars or sci-fi or whatever else he decided to do after Star Wars was really interesting to see what his career could have been like had he decided to stick with more slice of life grounded in reality films. Although we wouldn't have gotten Star Wars then, and that is kind of sad to think about.
Well, and I've said to just about anybody who will listen, which is not many people, but to you, that American Graffiti, in my mind, is George Lucas's best film. Like Star Wars is my favorite film. I love THX 1138, but American Graffiti is his best film, best written, best acted. It's definitely autobiographical in that each of the characters represents some aspect of George Lucas, especially back then at that time in the mid to late 60s. One of the things I love is the sort of gearhead Paul, who's the dude who's the man on the strip that everybody's trying to race and beat. And I believe that is George Lucas basically all of high school until his car accident when he just about died. And I've told you this, that one of the most ironic things in life is that George Lucas literally almost died in a car crash. The only thing that saved him was his seatbelt broke and threw him from the car. That's phenomenal to me. So imagine a world, and I understand people don't like George Lucas for his writing, his directing, what have you, but imagine a world without George Lucas, thus none of the special effects advancements we've had. So the movies would look a lot different nowadays.
We would lose so much modern technology and facilities. We'd lose LucasArts, which had sound, visual effects, etc. We'd lose Pixar, which is a whole other story into itself. We'd lose Star Wars. We'd lose a lot of modern Disney.
Indiana Jones.
Yeah, it would not look fun. But back to back to American Graffiti itself. You can tell it is definitely George Lucas's life, and that each character kind of exhibits a different part of what he may have seen or what he may have been involved with. And I love that each character, though they are definitely different proxies for Lucas, they are all their own individual characters that can exist unto themselves, and each character has their own special arc. I love the parallelism between Ron Howard's character and the quote-unquote main character, how Ron Howard's character realizes that instead of wanting to leave, he should stay because this is where he feels he would thrive best in, while the main character is like, I want to go. I want to leave after doing anything in his power to try and stay rooted where he is. I love Toad's realization that he doesn't need to prove himself to anybody and that he can just be himself. And I love John's arc, the Gearhead's arc, of kind of being an epic hero in that it's like he just does the right thing. And I love that at every point in time, he's always doing the right thing. Like with the girl's younger sister in the car, he essentially tricks her so that he can get her home early. He doesn't race Harrison Ford's character because she's in the car, and I love when he stops the car and saves Toad from those assholes who are beating him up. It's probably my favorite character story in the movie.
And that's another thing. The actors in this movie are phenomenal. We have Kurt, who's the main character, Richard Dreyfuss. We have Ron Howard. We have Cindy Williams. We have Suzanne Summers. Wolfman Jack, who's one of my favorite characters. We have, who's that guy that was racing, trying to run around race? I don't know. I don't know if he ever made himself. It was
some underground
Harrison Ford, something along those lines.
I thought it was Larry Chevy.
Yeah, something like that. Which just cracks me up to see him like so early on in his career with a very
so young,
big role but minor part. But the cast is amazing, and one of my favorite scenes in any movie is when Kurt goes to the radio station trying to get the word out that he is just in love with this woman that he saw in the white T-Bird, trying to get information, get her to call him so he gets anything, gets there hoping to meet Wolfman, the disc jockey, and he gets there and he finds a dude who's trying to hand him popsicles because the freezer broke, and he's just like, oh man, he's sort of like crushed. And Wolfman's giving him advice, but he doesn't know it's Wolfman. It's just a disc jockey. So he's just giving him advice, and he's like, whatever, man, all right, whatever. He's like, okay, well, if you get this note out, cool. And he goes to leave, and then you have the disc jockey on the other side of a soundproof window, and Kurt looks and sees his mouth moving, and there's a slight difference in timing, voice coming over the radio, and it's Wolfman. And the disc jockey's talking, and you realize this whole time that sage advice came from this dude he's been listening to all night over the radio, Wolfman Jack. And I absolutely love that scene. He finally gets the phone call, trying to find out who this beautiful woman is. And it's just, I love that scene. It's amazing. It's really what George Lucas is about. Sort of this happy ending, this sage advice, almost like this Obi-Wan Kenobi, but he didn't know that's who it was. I love it.
I will say that is probably the best part of the film is Kurt's growth in realizing that it's like all he was doing was trying to find some reason, any reason to stay, and that it wasn't worth it, that he needs to adventure and go out. And I love that ending because every character gets their happy ending. I don't like the ending where it shows what happens to everybody because John dies like 2 years later, and it's like, oh, thanks, killed the best character. Yay. I've never cared for that because it kind of ruins the way endings work, and it's like you have the opportunity to kind of give us the chance to see where each character will go, and then doing that is like, you get no choice, you know what happens. But sometimes it works to comedic effect, like Animal House does it brilliantly, but that's the whole point. It's supposed to be a joke. But in this, it kind of, in my opinion, it ruins the ending because you have this wonderful arc that's completed, and then you get context what happens after, and it's like, oh, great. So we don't get to imagine what happens. We just know and kind of have to contend with that.
One of the other nice things about this movie is it's essentially a 2-hour music video with several different songs being played throughout, and they're just classic late 50s, 60s songs that I absolutely love. And it's set to action pieces. Some of them are covers because there's an actual band in the movie that is playing these at a dance. And a lot of them are Wolfman Jack playing them over the radio. And I just love the music. Very nostalgic. Played along with cruising up and down the strip, stopping at Mel's Diner with the food being brought out to you. It's such a nostalgic movie. Don't get me wrong. I did not live during this era.
Neither did I.
We get comments about that on how old I actually am. I'm not that old. I'm an 80s kid, 1977, the year I was born. But I like looking back at that and seeing that.
He's a weirdo. Anyways.
I am. Plus it's George Lucas.
It's, my father and I have a running joke of, on tonight's edition of Where Did All the Money Go? American Graffiti's money definitely went to the music.
And again, George Lucas was able to take advantage of marketing, merchandising, and licensing before it became super expensive. So luckily we did get to see that. But the good news is George Lucas made a huge successful film. At the same time, the studio that released it, Universal, pissed him off in that they did cut his film unlike he wanted. So he had the money to go do his next project, which was Star Wars, and he learned a valuable lesson. He wanted to be an independent filmmaker. And to date, he is the most successful independent filmmaker of all time, basically because every Star Wars movie after starting with Phantom Menace made about $1 billion. So good for him.
Moral of the story, kids, don't drive cars.
And believe in yourself.